What's the Doc?
Good. Hey, how you doing?
Good, you?
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
You're underdressed today.
That's perfectly nice. Yeah, exactly. This one here.
If this place can even make Luca be less classy, then they can take out anyone.
Jed, can I just explain to you that what we're doing next is our dress shop, and then we're going to do some walk-ons for the final table. So you'll all be at the bottom of
PCA. It's the third 100k super high roller. There were 59 entries. There are now 8 players, and there can only be one winner. Hello and welcome to the 10th ever PokerStars.net Caribbean adventure from the Atlantis Resort and Casino on Paradise Island in the Bahamas. This 10-day festival has kicked off with the $100,000 buy-in Super High Roller Tournament, which began 2 days ago and is now down to the final 8. Today, we will watch them play down to a winner. You'll get whole cards up coverage of the final table, every single hand for your viewing delectation here on PokerStars.tv. I'm James Hartigan, joined here at Atlantis by Joe Stapleton. These are the 8 players, Joe, and look at the chip lead that Doc Sands has coming in today.
And we are here for your delectation, everyone. Right there. Yes, Doc Sands. He's got about as many chips as that word was worth, James. 6.68 million, 167 big blinds, far and away the chip leader, more than twice Nick Schulman's chips. Some would say he is the favorite.
Yes, you may remember when we covered the grand final Super High Roller event in Monaco, Justin Bonomo had a similar chip lead, roughly 45% of the chips in play, and he went to steamroll over the table and walk away with the title. The first prize here is more than $2 million.
$2,003,480 to be exact, James.
With the runner-up set to pocket nearly $1.3 million. And let's have a look at the seating order at the table. And we can see that Doc Sands will be in the 8th seat. And the shortest stack, which is Vladimir Troyanovsky, will be in the 5 seat. And look at those flags. It is a mainly USA table, the exceptions being Troyanovsky, representing Russia, and Phil Gruesome, no stranger to high roller final tables, representing Germany. Phil Gruesome, of course, has had his fair share of high roller wins, but is yet to seal victory in a super high roller event.
And Phil, one of the players who did reload in this event. This was a multiple entry tournament. Players could enter up until the first hand of play on day 2. Phil went out fairly early on the first day, but ended up chip leader after he rebought. Just 200 dimes, no big deal.
A total of 47 players, 59 entries in total. That means there were 12 reloads. Did we have anyone who reloaded more than once? I think we did, actually. And obviously, along the way, we lost some very big names from the tournament. Antonio Esfandiari bubbled the final table. Jason Mercier out in 10th. Vanessa Selpst is the first female player to ever make it into a super high roller event and was very close to the final table. Went out in 11th. We lost Phil Ivey, Daniel Negreanu, Eric Seidel, and Eugene Kachalov, who, of course, won the first ever super high roller we held here in the Bahamas. And Tom Dwan, making his debut in a PCA Super High Roller, was out in 35th.
You know, I'm a huge Vanessa Selpst fan, and I would have, obviously I was rooting her for her. Whoop! We got some key hands coming up from this tournament.
Yeah, this is the hand which sealed Elke's fate. Didn't see him eliminated. Pre-flop, he called a 3-bet with ace-10 out of position, and he flopped top 2.
Vivek Rajkumar
has ace-queen. So with top pair, he tanks and then calls Elke's raise on the turn and then gets there on the river. Elke then bets enough to put him all in. He obviously calls. Now he has top 2. Elke sees he's been rivered and he walks away from the table, although he wasn't actually eliminated. He still had chips behind, but obviously it was very difficult to recover from that.
He may have known he still had chips behind. That's the kind of beat where you just have to walk away from the table. Just a super cooler. No guy really played it wrong.
And that's what he was left with, and he was eliminated shortly afterwards. And obviously, the first couple of days of this tournament have been recorded for TV, and those highlight shows will air around the world. Today, we will just watch the final, and we can see there the 8 players who will be competing for that $2 million plus first prize, and of course, the title and trophy. Interesting to see Dan Shack back here for the second year running. He was last year's runner-up, Joe, to Victor Blom.
It's always great when you see just, a regular guy making it to the final table of the super high roller. There's a guy who walked in off the street, probably satellited in for all we know for a couple of cents, maybe used some frequent player points.
Yeah, I don't think you describe anyone with Dan Shack's bank balance as a regular guy. We've already mentioned Phil Gruesome. Should mention that if you want to get in touch with Joe and I here in the Caribbean, you can tweet using the hashtag PCA Live. We will happily answer any questions you may have. We'll happily read out some of your comments. Joe's got a couple of games for us lined up. So if you want to take part in those, use the hashtag PCA Live. If you're not yet on Twitter, you can still email nuts@pokerstars.tv. But suffice to say, Twitter has an instantaneous quality which is tough to match. In case you're wondering how this production's been put together, the images we are seeing now, and what we're seeing is the official photographer, Neil Stoddart, taking the official photograph of the final tablists, or at least preparing them for that photograph. This all happened 40 minutes ago. Joe and I are commentating in delay, if you like. So you're hearing us as we speak. We're watching these images the same time you're watching them, but everything happened 40 minutes ago.
It's a little old. And guess what, guys? PokerStars is a company that always incorporates your feedback into the broadcast, and so many of you, after the last broadcast we did, said, please, can we watch them shoot the official final table photo live and have commentary from James Hardigan and Joe Stapleton? And PokerStars said, yes, we can. We can do that. They got me and James in here a little bit early to do it. I've been an advocate of this since the beginning. It's not a live broadcast unless we see the official photo being taken.
You have no idea how many meetings and conference calls took place.
I know you were in favor of it, James. Yeah, it's just, we finally are starting to have some clout, but it was you guys, the viewers, mostly. The letters, the emails. One guy sent a telegram. Do you know how much trouble it takes to send in a telegram? That's how the fat cat knew that you were serious about seeing this photo being taken.
Well, as we see the players being lined up for that photograph, let's talk about a couple of the non-poker professionals at the table. And we just saw the guy in the baseball cup there, Kerry Katz. What do we know about him?
Kerry Katz is 41 years old. I believe he is the co-CEO of a college loan company, one of the biggest in the country. So I assume he does pretty well for himself. That fellow we're looking at right there, that is Greg Jensen. Greg's got a pretty interesting story as well. Greg is a hedge fund manager, one of the biggest in the world. I think I read that they have about $133 billion in assets. Yeah. Granted, that's not his personal wealth, but I'm sure he does pretty well for himself.
Yeah, yours falls in.
Greg.
Well, how about you go down, because we're the same height.
Now I'm the only person on a level below.
He is too.
Oh, but Scott, you're on a level above. Come on. Let's be honest.
I'm quite glad that we are getting to see all this, because who would have known that they argue about who's going to stand where when the photo's taken and who should be at what height?
These are poker players, and ego plays no part in it, James. Not ever. And that fellow there on your right is Vladimir Tryanovsky. Here's our lone Russian player. A bit of a wealthy businessman himself. He claimed that the only reason he didn't play the one drop this year is because he couldn't get into the States. Visa denied. He should have tried MasterCard. Thank you, Scott Seaver. I'll be here all week.
One interesting note about Greg Jensen. He was bought a seat in the 10K main event here at the PCA by a friend or one of his business colleagues.
That's right, as a gift.
And then, because he was here, on a whim, just decides, you know what, I'm going to play this $100,000 buy-in tournament as well.
But that's not the most interesting thing. The most interesting thing is that Greg has pledged that he would donate anything he wins in this event, which is already quite sizable, to the victims of Sandy Hook, the tragic shooting that took place in Connecticut. And I don't want to dwell on that too much, but what he's doing is truly incredible, and let's hope that his score is huge.
Well, he's guaranteed at least $228,960. Of course, the 7-figure scores are reserved for the top two. 1.259 million for runner-up, more than 2 million for the winner. So now they've had their photo taken, they've all got comfortable at the table. They have to get up again to do the official walk-ins. There will be one exception to that rule, though. And that exception will be Doc Sands, who you may have noticed was kind of hobbling around the stage there. And I understand you've got the inside track, Joe, on what happened to the doctor.
Well, according to Doc's Twitter, he says that he saw Jason Mercer playing basketball against a bunch of 12-year-olds, and Mercer was dominating. And Doc decided he was going to participate in this game, but play for the other team. He won the game, but in the process rolled his ankle. And so I believe it won't be a walk-on for Doc David Sands, but instead a hop-on, if I'm not mistaken. You're going to have hop-ons.
Now, you may have seen on your screen there, the eagle-eyed among you, that there is a free roll today taking place a little later this evening. And a bit later on in the broadcast, we will give you the password you need to play that free roll so you can have some fun at home playing along for a slice of free money while watching these guys play for obscene sums of money.
2,003,480, actually, which is fairly obscene.
Hello to Sammy the Freezing Fin. He says, hello guys, missed you already. Can't wait for the game to start. And hopefully that will happen soon. Sam says, if Doc Sands takes this down, will this be his first major live tournament win? He surely is due.
I do not know the answer to that question. I do not know who won the last EPT event. Unfortunately, sometimes things get in the way, like alcohol, sleep deprivation, various antibiotics that have to be administered after a trip like this.
Arvidas says, go Nick Schulman. Good luck for him.
Nick Schulman not on Twitter.
And Irviston says, wow, how old does Dan Shack look? Damn. I don't think he looks that old.
I think he looks probably exactly whatever age he is. You know, like pushing 50. Now, if he was in his 30s, I guess it would prove the Twitter followers' point, though.
So a reminder, that is the seat order. And you can see that Doc Sands will have a monster chip lead when play gets underway. We have still got a bit of the 2040 blind level to play. That's where they stopped at last night, with around 27 minutes left on that level. So when things get underway, 20,000, 40,000 blinds with a 5,000 ante.
You will notice, though, that the two biggest stacks of the table are sitting directly next to each other, which is always a pretty interesting dynamic.
Now, Joe, I understand you have got a few games for us to play today.
I have a game. I don't know if you talk to my people or what, but they're still overselling me.
Tell us about your game, then.
By my people, I mean my parents. Okay, this game is called How Much Does It Cost? And, you know, Monte Carlo sort of has a reputation for being a rather expensive place, but you wouldn't think it here in the Bahamas. It's a very American-feeling place, and as we know, America is basically a third-world country at this point, so you wouldn't expect things to be quite so expensive here in the Bahamas, but it is. It is. And, you know, I figure it's appropriate that while we're talking about obscene amounts of money here in the Super High Roller, we could talk about the obscene amounts of money it costs to buy regular old everyday things here in the Bahamas. So we've got a little game called How Much Does It Cost? And we're going to allow you guys to enter via Twitter. And for each of these things, I'm going to shout out a sort of an item and where it's purchased here on the island. Just stay on my nice list and don't get on my naughty list. You know who you are.
Oh, dear.
Rolls.
We've got Alex on Twitter saying, please tell Scott Seaver to stop posting spoilers on Twitter. Here's an idea. Unfollow Scott Seaver for the rest of the day. Here's another key hand from yesterday. This saw the demise of Phil Ivey.
Not only the demise of Phil, but Doc Sands is absolute domination after this point.
So an early position raise from Doc Sands. Ivey defended his big blind with 5 deuce. Now Doc continues with good reason. He's got ace-5. He's got top 2. Ivey, with a pair in the gut shot, calls and then picks up the flush draw to go with his pair in a gut shot on the turn. He checks a second time. Doc Sands bets a second time. Ivey then check raises. And Sands moves all in. Now, Ivey was in the tank for more than 5 minutes. Obviously, we've edited the time out.
We're not going to make you sit through the 5 minutes.
That's not the smartest thing you've ever done. All right, okay, I'll call.
And he calls. And he does not improve on the river, and we say goodbye to Phil Ivey.
You know what, it looked like there was a case of him just having invested too much, calling that raise. Well, you just kind of said who the winner was.
Well, no, because someone may still come in with a winning bid.
Okay. There's a little expectation bias here, it sounds like.
Oh, here we go. Sven, $8.50. No, he's just gone over by 50 cents.
Sven missed it by just 50 cents. Sander got it correct. Well, at least came close without going over. $8 for a fruit cup.
We'll play another round of the game later on, but I think we're about to get the action underway here at Atlantis. Let's head down to the floor and Robbie Thompson.
Welcome to the 10th anniversary of the PCA. We're here at the final table of the Super High Roller event where 59 entries put up $100,000 to play for a first place prize of over $2 million. So without further ado, let's meet our crew. In seat number 1, starting with $2,295,000, Nick Schulman.
Very nice, Robbie, very nice.
In seat number 2, starting with $870,000, Dan Shack.
Two for two, Robbie.
In seat number 3, starting with $1,500,000, Greg Jansen. In seat number 4, starting with $755,000, Scott Seaver. In seat number 5, starting with $505,000, Vladimir Troyanovsky. Seat number 6, starting with $1,610,000, Philip Grissom. On seat number 7, starting with $540,000, Kerry Katz. And last but not least, he is already seated. He is our chip leader going into this final table with $6,680,000, David Sands.
You know what they say, if you can't make a grand entrance, wear sunglasses.
With an ante of 5,000, small blind 20,000, big blind 40,000. We have 27 minutes left at this table. Good luck, gentlemen. Dealer, shuffle up and deal, please.
I need help here. This thing fell off.
Oh, Dan Shack's having trouble with his trousers. The reason, by the way, that Doc Sands was sitting down, as we covered earlier on, if you just joined us, Doc Sands actually injured his foot playing basketball against Jason Mercier, and we thought it would be unfair to make him hop up the stage. And to answer Matthias's question, I don't believe he is a real doctor.
That's disappointing. He wrote me 4 prescriptions yesterday.
Hello to Adina, who says, hi guys, how are you? Just want to wish you Happy New Year, all the best from Australia, where it's 6 a.m. having coffee. Gotta love the fact that people are watching PCA Live from around the world. You can get in touch using that hashtag PCA Live. As Robbie just mentioned, the blinds are 20 and 40,000 with a 5,000 ante.
How much more time?
25 minutes? Or it's up there.
Action will be on Carry Katz.
Oh, we have to call poker now.
He folds. Doc Sands with the monster chip lead. 45% of the chips in play, a stack of more than 6.6 million.
Now, I'm surprised to see Doc even reaching for chips. Doc is one of the most notorious tankers in the game.
Raises to 80,000. Gets rid of Shulman and Shaq.
I would expect his action to be deliberate today, to say the least.
Had all day to think what you're going to do hand one, all night, before you decide. Just going to raise it.
Explains why he didn't tank for very long. Been thinking about it all night.
I guess I'm all in then.
All in.
Speech! Speech!
So Scott Seaver moving all in for 750,000 with the pocket queens on the button. We don't know what Sands' whole cards are yet. Obviously didn't show them to the camera.
Thank you. I had all night to think about it.
Nice speech, Catullus. What, nobody else reads Latin? Doc fold King 7 suited. I always wonder when someone gives a speech like that, if he hadn't, could he have maybe gotten action? Probably not with King 7 suited.
Yeah, it's funny what you said, Joe, about Doc Sands' reputation as a bit of a tanker. Roland on Twitter says, Doc Sands with the chip lead equals a long night. Scott, meanwhile, up to 930,000, fifth in chips. This is a real tale of the have and the have-nots, the only have really being Doc Sands.
What's he got, like 45% of the chips in
Yeah.
play? A little bit less now since he lost that pot, but I'd take it.
Hello to Gareth on Twitter. He says, shuffle up and deal, baby. Here we go. Big shout out from Singapore. Love to hear from you wherever you are in the world. Got Pierre Starcraft telling us that it's 8:30 p.m. in Belgium where he's watching. And just to satisfy everyone's curiosity, I do think that when Robbie does his act, his tongue is firmly in his cheek, guys.
I think so, too. By the way, I'd give him a solid 7 out of 8, maybe 6.5 out of 8 for the namesake. Nice work, Robbie.
Scott Seaver straight back into the action. Min racing from the hijack.
Over the new year, I heard Robbie got Rosetta Stone for English.
And looks like it's raise and take it for Seaver.
Scott Seaver was had a bit of a humble brag today as they were unbagging their chips, talking about how he didn't really have to fill out his player survey anymore. He's like, yeah, it's really nice to not have to fill these out all the way. I've been here before.
Yeah, that's why they wanted to.
Mentioning that he's like, look, they know my marital status, my contact info at this point. Yes, Scott, we know your marital status. Single.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Although I'm single too and very, very lonely. If you know anyone, if you have a sister.
No, I just need.
Hello to Thomas, who says hello from Slovakia. And greetings also to Karim, who is rooting for Phil Gruesome, the only European player left in this tournament.
What a tragedy on European soil, eh, James? To only have one European player here in Europe on the European Poker Tour.
Yeah, keep the trash talk going, Stapes. Well, there's an interesting dynamic. Shaq's opened with King Jack suited. And Greg Jensen has got King Queen suited. And he will call Shaq's early position raise. Seaver with aces.
Michelle, the dealer, you are the Widowmaker. 3 strong hands all around. One of them slightly stronger than the other two. Almost certainly a 3-bet coming. Scott doesn't want to take this flop 9 ways. So is this queens and aces and nearly back-to-back hands? Queens, ace-4, and aces for Scott Seaver. Somebody's getting hit in the face with a deck. I said deck, just for the record.
3 raises makes it a total of 275,000.
275,000 total. Tronovsky and Gruesome both fold.
That's a pretty enticing raise for two guys already being in this pot.
The blinds get out of the way, so the action's back on Shaq.
Dan Shaq has improved tons and tons in the years since he's been on the tour. I was saying that thinking he might be able to get away from this.
No, he calls. And the problem now is that Jensen's going to feel priced in.
Absolutely. And he should. He's getting like 5-ish to 1. These are both very strong hands as well as being speculative at the same time. And if you have two aces, you're not crazy about being up against these two hands.
10-9-9 on the flop. 925,000 in the middle. Jensen is the only player with more than a pot-sized bet behind.
Scott,
Uh-oh. Dan Shaq shoves the flop. An easy fold for Jensen, you'd think, but a pretty easy call for Siever.
You have to wonder what Jensen's thinking about. If we had a Venn diagram of this table of
How much is that?
big shot millionaires and professional poker players, Dan Shaq might come in the middle of those two circles.
580.
He's the best of both worlds, really.
Now, assuming we've got Jensen's cards right, he has a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw.
It's great that we have to say that now, by the way, after the incident. Obviously, we all know most of the people watching this broadcast are a little more well-versed in poker. I think this is a pretty crazy call to be contemplating. Or reshove. Maybe against just Dan Shaq, you can sort of justify the tank, or or just calling and trying to snap off a relative short stack. But with Scott Siever still in this hand and 3-betting pre-flop, I just don't see how you can realistically make a call or a raise here. Jensen fully admits, by the way, that he is not the best poker player. He said he'd need a lot of luck to win this tournament. If luck is what he's counting on, then he should certainly call a raise here. Dan Shaq can make top pair. Jensen can make it straight.
I'm mildly confused here. I'm not going to lie to you.
This is a very long tank. It's either I'm going to gamble and I call, or I have absolute air and I fold.
The irony is, if Siever wasn't part of this equation, if it was heads up between Shaq and Jensen, it'd be an awesome soul read and an awesome hero call with King Queen
Yeah,
here.
absolutely. But now if he does somehow not fold here, he gets lambasted. For Evs, he does reshove.
Siever insta-calls. Now, Jensen is not at risk here, but Siever does have Dan Shaq covered.
King, queen of hearts.
Of course, if something funky happens and Jensen somehow hits a jack or running hearts, he would eliminate two players.
And this would be more than a double up for him.
Thank you.
I need your queen.
He started this hand with less than 1 million chips.
I'll take a 9. Yeah, thank you, Vladimir.
How about a queen?
And Shaq wants Jensen the pair. Jensen wants Shaq the pair. Scott Siever wants the board to come out trips.
You top two these things all the time. You have to let someone else maybe get a chance.
I think a queen's coming.
I mean, probably is, but along with another one, probably, which will also make me lose.
It does.
See, I'm not the only one who
Also make
screws up.
me lose.
Yeah.
Let's see the turn, please.
The turn card
Turn card is the ace.
is an ace, giving Scott Siever a full house,
That
And-
is it.
sealing the fate of Dan Shaq, who will be our 8th place finisher,
For me. Let's put it
and
that way.
crippling Greg Jensen.
Round of applause for Dan, everybody.
Greg Jensen will be down to 765,000. Dan Shaq will walk away
50,
with $228,960 for his 8th place finish.
Someone needs to verify.
stopped if he didn't have aces.
Here's the instant replay in case you missed that ace on the turn.
Yeah, a lot of people confused about the senseless tanking of Greg Jensen. He ended up getting the money in there, and he ended up losing a chunk of chips he really didn't need to lose.
Which do you think is more senseless, the tank or the call?
Bit from column
Sorry,
A,
the shove, excuse
bit
me.
from column B.
I saw you fumble, and I just saw like I saw you make like a face. I'm like, oh my god, it's an important card somehow, and that terrified me, obviously.
It's one of my favorite tactics, even though I don't get to play much poker, is winning the hand and then talking about how good everybody else played it.
And obviously, those of you who are complaining about spoilers from Mr. Seaver on Twitter were probably referring to the first few hands, including that huge triple up for Scott, which sees him now playing a stack of more than 2.5 million.
Are players told not to tweet from the final table, James?
We asked them, but we can't stop them.